Good morning and welcome to Emerson Institute at City of Light. I'm Reverend Dr. Paul Gretz, and it's a delight to welcome you to our class, coming to you live from the Dr. Angelo Pizzello Wisdom Center at City of Light, located at 3125 Presidential Parkway in Atlanta, Georgia. Well, to begin today's class on Alchemy, which is class number 7, and the chapter entitled The Revelation of True Self, we want to begin by taking some fresh breath in and releasing out all stress and tension. This exercise helps us to reset our thinking and bring us into the moment, right here and now. I know that maybe as you've gathered for this class, there may have been distractions, all kinds of things in your day already unfolding. Well, it's time to release all that and be present right here in this moment, right here and now. So I invite you to join with me in this breathing exercise. We're going to breathe in through our nose, hold for a brief moment, and breathe out through our mouth. And as we do, we want to just breathe in a fresh awareness of God and release out all cares, worry, or stress. Join with me now. Let's breathe together. Breathe in and release. Deep breath in and release. Deep breath in and release. And in this moment of silence, set your intention for that which you desire to transpire in your life during this time that we share. And so it is. All right, this is class number 7, and we have note packets for everyone as you come right in, right here on the table for those students who are joining us. And we're glad that you're with us. And you can go right around this way, Elise, to find your chair. Wonderful, thank you. Glad to have you with us. And all those of you who are joining us in our class session live in person, we appreciate you being here today, as well as those of you who are joining us through live streaming and through our YouTube channel, City of Light Atlanta. Great to have everyone coming through all these different vehicles together to study and to just be open to what the Spirit of God has for us. Class number 7, The Revelation of True Self from the book Alchemy. Let's dig in. That begins with, we each have the opportunity in life to say yes to what is hidden to us. I love that statement alone, that there is an opportunity for us to experience quite often what we might feel is sort of veiled or hidden or not revealed to us in the realm of spiritual wisdom and understanding. There is an opportunity for us when we begin by simply saying yes. Yes to opening up our lives, opening up to something new, opening up to understanding, opening up in the sense of seeking, opening up in the sense of willing to learn. But the key is we have to say yes to these opportunities that are given to us, because every day the Spirit of God is teaching. Every day the Spirit of God is speaking. And we just have to have the spirit of yes, I am listening. Yes, I am the student and I'm ready to learn. Yes, I'm open to hearing what the Spirit may have for us. So many of us have come from a spiritual pathway or a religious pathway that's rather closed and confined. I grew up in the fundamentalist Christian journey, where, of course, if it wasn't written by an Assemblies of God author, if it wasn't written by something approved by the church, you weren't encouraged to read it because it wasn't going to be edifying your soul. So we weren't open to many different pathways. We weren't open to a lot of things that just weren't of this one denominational perspective. So with that closed-mindedness, there was a lot of things in life that we missed the opportunity to experience. So when I came out and left the Assemblies of God and that confining teaching, I opened up to experiencing so many new and different pathways and began to say yes in a spirit of openness. Of course, I was taught, if it's not ordained of God and it's not really blessed of God, it's, by the Assemblies of God, well, then it must be of the devil, and that may lead you down to a pathway of ignorance and a pathway of not really understanding the real truth in life, etc. And I just began to be open to say, I know the Spirit of God is wise and will lead and guide me. If there's something that's not for the edification of my soul, I have the wisdom of God to know that this is not going to be edifying or building me up. So I'll pass on it. But I'm not going to walk through life in a closed perspective, missing out on opportunities to learn. So I'm going to say yes. I'm going to open up my spirit and be yes, and a big yes to all the things that may be coming my way that I might learn from them. Now, the key here is, do we really take the opportunity? Do we take the opportunities that are made available to us? You know, we sometimes are so busy and distracted by life that we're not taking the opportunity to learn from the very Spirit of God's teaching. Already today, the Spirit of God has been speaking to you in several different ways. What have you learned already so far through your day-to-day experience? What has been unfolding for you? What has been available for you to experience? So, to be aligned with the divine, we must welcome a responsibility for change. That's what being open or saying yes is all about. Saying yes is all about being open to a responsibility that says, I realize if I'm going to grow and evolve, there's going to be some change. And as we mature in life, sometimes it's harder to welcome change. And for those who are new to the New Thought teaching, at a more seasoned age in life, they're sometimes going to say, wow, there's a lot of things I have to go through and change. And it's difficult to experience change because I've known certain things to be what I thought were true, and I had certain beliefs, but now suddenly I realized those beliefs weren't working for me. And so it's the challenge of going through change within our life to let go of something and welcome something new. But for the evolution of the soul, we must realize that our responsibility is there for change, to grow, to welcome change, and to be responsible in the journey of our soul's evolution, to entertain, to sort through, to seek in each experience the change that is necessary. So our focus then is to be concerned with how well we express the truth of our being. That's what's a major shift in our life. We're now more concerned as we welcome the opportunity and say yes to the Spirit of God speaking in our lives. Now we're saying our focus needs to be more, how well am I expressing this truth? That's what my number one concern in life is. In life, if we would just realize it, are you the best that you can be? Wake up every day and say, today, my intention is for me to be the best that I can be. And if your focus is every day being the best you, well, you're going to be expressing God to the best of your abilities. Because the best you is a divine you. And so to say, I want to be the best me means that I'm going to be the best expression of God. So what happens is, in this journey, we are learning to lift one another up in consciousness. And we're lifting up one another into a higher consciousness, not because we are making them better, but because we love them. And I think that's a crucial statement for us. We want to see the God in someone else, not because, I need to try to make you look better or appear better or seem better to me. I'm struggling with you. I find you offensive, or I find you it's uncomfortable to be with you, or I don't like what you're doing, or I don't like your actions or your beliefs. So I want to somehow lift you into this higher consciousness to somehow that will make you better. No, it's not about making anyone better. It's simply about loving them. And you have a comment.
I've been thinking about being a prayer partner, and I've been reading in the Science of Mind, and it has become so clear to me that as a person praying, your first job is to believe that the best is coming, that it will resolve to God's highest and your highest and best, and that's basically saying you need to open your heart and love them, no matter what you're faced with, no matter what they're expressing. To rise above that and just love them. And I agree. I think if you sense that someone loves you, it gives you a boost, elevation. So that process is clear now.
Yes, Carla.
Along that same line too, talking about knowing when somebody else loves you. It's also a thing for us to love ourselves, because when we talk about living or achieving or experiencing our highest and best, sometimes when we fall short and we miss that mark, it's easy to kind of get down on yourself and like, I should have known better, I should do better. And within here it talks about the merit of any situation is what we learn from it. And my dad used to say, if you're not making any mistakes, you're not learning anything. Right. So to not be so hard on ourselves, if we do make a mistake, just to realize that we, as he says in here, we draw to us what we need in order to learn and to evolve and grow. And that's our calling, really. And so if we are making mistakes, we're learning. But to also remember that with other people, as Anne was just saying, when we see somebody else falling short in our perception, to remember that they too are drawing to them what they need to learn and evolve and grow. And just going back to last week too, I love that comment, I think David made, but it was about loving them more, right? I don't know who made that comment, but instead of denying love to somebody who we perceive as making mistakes, love them more.
Right. Okay. Good. Excellent comments. Appreciate that. Wonderful. So to lift something or someone or a thing or experience to an upper room is not to make it holy. So let's not hatch some sort of judgments about what we're doing, but it is to release the inherent divinity of God being expressed as the thing you see. Now that's kind of verbose. So let's break that down. So what we're doing is we lift something up into a higher consciousness, as we lift it up into what the author calls the upper room. What we're doing is just seeing God being expressed in that scenario, that experience, that person, that thing. So what we want to do is to lift someone up to the upper room is to not condone or to judge against it. So there's no opinions about it. It is to reknow it simply as an expression of the divine. I see you as God. Dr. David Carter.
But isn't everything already holy? Or is it not? I figured if it was divine and it's God, right. God is holy. So isn't that already holy?
So yes, it is already holy. So you're not making it holy is the key thing that the author's trying to bring up. You're not doing a work of saying, I am now transforming it and making it holy. It already is. So that's a beautiful comment. Yes. So what we are simply doing is we are reknowing it, to reknow something. And instead of saying, ooh, I see this as a bad experience, wait a minute, I'm reknowing it, for I'm seeing the divine in it. And as I reknow it, I'm learning something from it. I'm learning something. As Carla brought out earlier, we may make mistakes in life, and let's reknow those experiences as learning experiences and say, I'm grateful for them. You know, I've often used in the illustration of a class that, you know, my son in his early years made a lot of bad choices. And we could look back at those things, that those were horrible, but I reknow them and see them as wonderful experiences of his evolution of the soul, of his growth. So rather than looking at, oh, those were bad times, maybe those were essential times. Those were important times. Those were vital experiences. So I reknow them. I rename them. I see them differently, for I see how God was at work in each one of those choices that he made and the experiences, because they became learning experiences for him. Now, to love others actually may be a whole lot different than what we've been taught, because there's a lot of people who just throw around, oh, I love people. I love the sinner, but I hate the sin. And we go on with all these kind of ideas that we bring out about what we think the aspect of loving is. But it is not a love that's based on knowing each individual as a perfect imprint of God. It is not that love that is based in an ignorance about that, but it is, I should say, but it is based in knowing this individual as the perfect print of God, the perfect in the moment that they stand in. Let's just take out the word in our notes. It might be clearer that it is love, not is not, okay? That might be a more clarifying statement there. Let's reword it that way in our note packet. So I'm going to edit that right now for us for the future. And there we go. you don't claim other people or experiences as something other. You claim them as they truly are. So with all their shortfallings, their shortcomings, their mistakes, their errors, we love people just as they are. You love them even if you don't agree with them. That's what we're talking about when we talk about this kind of love that is lifting someone up into a higher consciousness or an upper room. You love their essence, and that is to know them beyond their personal fears or your fears of them and their behaviors. So it doesn't matter what people act like, what they're doing, what they're thinking, whether we love them unconditionally. That's what it's all about. And really, it's quite challenging in our life to learn what unconditional love is all about, isn't it?
Yes.
Because we so often attach some sort of agenda to our gifts of love, our sharing love. I'll love you if, I'll love you when. And when you are not doing what I want you to do, or I want to manipulate you in some way through my gifts of love. We try to get people to behave in a certain way. But unconditional love is loving someone for who they truly are, and that's the divine essence for the God that we see in each person. So we pass away, we release all kind of judgments or condemnation. And your comment.
This question was bound to come up at some point. How then can we look at what's happening in Afghanistan with the Kabbalah, not the Kabbalah, the takeover of
Taliban.
The government, Taliban.
Uh-huh.
Just the whole situation, how horrible it is, and they're taking over their. And my struggle, I say to myself, to bring the Christ consciousness in, to be in the upper room, we have to love even the military that's taking over and killing people in Afghanistan. You know, and that's kind of a hard one for me to see, except I know they're divine. They're all divine. They've all been created by God. And does it come down to a simple choice? I mean, is choice the answer to that philosophical question, or?
So the question is, how do we love what's going on in Afghanistan?
Continue. I mean, it's easy to love the poor people that are being, taken over,
right.
But it's not easy to look at.
And I think we could go on a political discussion on this forever. It seems like we've been involved in working in Afghanistan for years,
right.
And the Russians were involved in Afghanistan before the Americans were. So they were there for years, and they finally left. And so Americans are realizing, it's sometimes we are maybe involved in something where we just need to let it grow through itself. We need to have the people rise up to say, what is it you truly want, rather than allowing another country to fight for you. So you have to make those decisions, and that evolution has to come out of that cultural thinking itself. Yes.
I think it's earlier in this book, he talks about when we see war, that we put labels on war, and we have expectations of what that is based on the label that we give it. But if we take away the labels and the history of what we expect when we label it, he says it's just men dancing, or just people dancing, right? Which I know that's a hard concept, but I think what I'm trying to work on myself is to let go of that label and my expectation of what that is, and to go to that upper room again and thinking, because if I continue to label it and label it bad, from what I understand and hear, that the energy and the expectation that I'm giving to it is not decrying, but is what do I want to say, expecting an outcome, that I am creating an outcome. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Paul, but that I'm contributing to the outcome by my expectation of what I believe war is, and that as a collective, when we all do that, we're contributing to that outcome of it being war. But when we look at it from the perspective of it's all divine and not have an expectation, what he says is that the outcome might be even better than we ever expected.
Right.
I know it was convoluted. I hope that made sense.
Yes.
Coming up for healing. But my dad used to quote Shakespeare all the time. All the world's a stage and all the people are merely actors.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's not very spiritual. Well, it is spiritual.
Yes.
But it is. It's that little soul in the sun, your story again.
Right. Yeah. Great. Excellent. Thank you for your comment. What we're learning to do is to claim something not as it is, not as something we want it to be or something other. You claim experiences as they truly are. And even in this struggle in Afghanistan, it is a struggle of cultural evolution as people are deciding about freedoms. And one of the issues is the Taliban will bring in a more conservative outlook for culture where women are not allowed to have education. They're not allowed the freedoms that they're experiencing currently. But that evolution of freedom for people has to have some grassroots within it. And it can't always be babysat by an outside force. It has to happen within. So at this point, it may be the wisest, after 20-some years of fighting, of American commitment to fight within Afghanistan and not finding any resolution, it might be best that we realize, well, maybe our interference isn't helping, that we need to have something organic happen amongst the people themselves. And maybe that is that the Taliban do take over. But through that Taliban takeover and it becomes a Taliban-led nation, there's an evolution that happens within the Taliban, versus them, rising up and saying, we want conservative thinking to overpower more liberal thinking. Maybe when conservative thinking takes place over the nation, that they begin to evolve through that thinking to say, well, wait a minute, maybe we've been too conservative. And maybe there is a course for freedom. So it's about knowing that every nation and every culture and every society is going through its own evolution. Yes?
I think it'll be interesting to see what will happen with the COVID virus and that whole country. Because if your mind is focused on control all the time, you're not really thinking of taking care of yourself. Your viewpoint is outward, and so that will be an interesting outcome too, or just a happening.
All right. So what we're learning to do is love someone's essence. What does it mean to love the essence? Someone have a comment on that when you say you love someone's essence?
Their soul.
Their soul, yes. To truly love the soul of one another is the unconditional love, to love the beauty of that person as they truly are spiritually, as they truly are, to see the essence, move beyond the physical, I think that's the depth of true love that lasts down through the ages. I think in our world, you may find a lot of marriage relationships that are based on the physical. And then someone says, well, I don't find the husband attractive. I don't find the wife attractive. We've grown old. We've changed our ways. But have we really fallen in love with the essence? Have we found in love with the beauty, the soul of one another that is there, that is timeless and ageless? So to truly love one another is to love them for all time. I love that thought. When you are truly loving someone unconditionally, you love them for all time. So there's not a moment when you stop loving them, right? So there's nothing they can do that would stop you from loving them. Because this is truly God. God is love, and there's nothing you can do that would stop God from loving, for God is love. The love is within you. There's nothing that you could do that would stop this very power of love at work within us. For true love is God in expression, and it is eternal. Now, if we understand that, how does that work with our more fundamentalist beliefs that God might send you to hell and God might punish you through eternity? That you might spend the eternity based on some choices you've made in your free will that God gave you. And you made choices that God wasn't happy with. And so God stops loving you and sends you off to eternal punishment. How is that love? How is that love that's eternal? Can you love someone that is eternally being punished and by your choosing? In other words, God says, I want to send you into eternal hell and damnation. I have chosen that pathway for you. because I love you? No. Isn't that an interesting thought about God's eternal love? But no, that comes from an idea that God's love ends. That there's a point where God says, I don't love you anymore because I can't love you, because you're so sinful, because you've made so many errors and mistakes, and my purity and my holiness cannot dwell with you. So I dismiss you and I send you off to an eternal damnation. But what we find is an understanding in spiritual truth that love is timeless, ageless, eternal. True love does not end. So you can say, that when we're truly in love, we're loving the essence of the divine within someone. We're loving that person, and it never stops. It is ongoing. It never fails. It never ends, for this is God. We find that in the passage of Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 13, known as the love chapter, describing what love really is. And it really describes what God is. God is love, and that love never ends and never fails. So we would have to rethink our beliefs around eternal punishment and a hell and a damnation, that somehow God in love would send you there, or that God whose love would end, would send you there. So you see how we have to think through some of our beliefs, and this is part of the evolution of us saying yes to evolving our thinking and re-examining some of the beliefs that we may have embraced in our life. So what we're looking here is the denial of love is also the denial of God. To deny love towards someone is to deny God, for God is love. So if you're saying, I stop loving you, it's like I stop acknowledging the God within you. I stop seeing the God presence in you. I deny that you are there. It's really to refuse love to another and to not allow it to be there. And to allow it to be refused is simply to deny God. Wow. When we think about that, how often we've denied the presence of God, the realization of God in one another, by refusing to love, by withholding our love. The formula, okay, Dr. David Carter has a comment.
Okay, so back to our thinking that at some point love ends, and God will punish us. Do you explain that to someone by saying that there's love and law? And the law it's no respect of person. You reap what you sow. But then the grace, which I have to say is part of love, makes that allowance and gives you that space to grow from whatever error you have made. Right. And so grace, like love, is ongoing. It never ends. Well, the law. I guess in essence, all of it is God. Love, law, grace, all of that is God.
And law is the action, and grace is the gift that is given to us that enables us to correct the karmic direction we're headed in based on law. What you sow, you reap. So you are sowing evil, error in your thinking and your ways, but the grace allows a chance for us to realign, to correct, to get back on course. And that's the beautiful thing of the love of God, is always there, ever offering us the opportunities to get back on course, shall we say. Beautiful, thank you. For the formula for loving someone is this. Number one, to give them the right to be, even if it's not what you want. Wow. To love someone is to give them the right to be who they are, how they act, or different actions or beliefs than what we do. And we don't deny any love to them, but to deny love to another is to decide that that person's not worth living, or worth loving, or worth being. That's what we're doing when we deny love. That we're saying that person is not worth love, not worth the gift that we might share. So to release someone to be who they are, as they are, is an act of love. Wow. I just love you as you are. not how I want you to be, or how I'd like to change you, or how I want you to be for me, but to love you as you are. Yes.
So Jerry Troyer put something on Facebook the other day, and it said basically this, and it tacks on something else, and it says, to love someone, you have to allow them to be who they are. Otherwise, you're just looking at a reflection of yourself. And so if you're looking at someone else and saying, I love you, but you do this, it's really just projecting from your own self.
Right.
So,
Carla, your comment.
I think it's kind of, to David's comment, it's kind of an intricate dance almost, because if somebody else is doing something that we perceive as falling short, we have to, of course, protect ourselves and not put ourselves in the way of being harmed by them if they are doing that. But also, there's that forgiveness, grace and forgiveness too, which goes along with the love and allowing them to be who they are. Sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought. But that we see it from that higher perspective,
Right.
as opposed to just continuing to look at the flaw and allow them to make that mistake, but also for them to find their own alignment, and hopefully they will find their alignment with harmony.
And we're going to help them find that pathway to their higher consciousness by loving them, not by denying love. And isn't that the craziest thing? I want you to change. I want you to be better. And, you know, you may even, I want the highest and best for you, but because you're not doing the highest and best of what I believe, I'm going to cut off love. And you think that helps someone. It doesn't. It doesn't help them. But the pathway of giving love will help people to self-realize. Dr. David Carter, your comment.
Diane Mundine has a question online.
All right. Diane, welcome to our class today.
You love the essence of the individual, but what do you do about the behavior?
Well, again, you're not here to love someone based on their behavior, but to love them for who they really are, their essence, their soul. So we know that everyone's going to make mistakes and error in this world. Scripture says all we like sheep have gone astray. It's simply saying everyone has made a mistake. Everyone has fallen short. Everyone has done that. So for us to say, well, you know, because of your behavior or because of this or that, I'm going to cut you off. No, we love even those who've gone astray, shall we say. Those who we may think are not living at their highest and best. But remember, that's our judgment and that's our condemnation. So we want to let's remove judgment and condemnation and let people be where they are. And that's a hard thing, is to let people make mistakes. Wow. Don't we want to correct everyone? And I know better. I want to control you and, you know, tell you you're making a mistake and you shouldn't be doing this. And we think that that's what we, you know, but we have to let people be and let them be on their own pathway. Yes.
To
Carla.
what Ann had said before, I should be calling you guys Dr. Ann and Dr. David.
oh
sorry.
yeah, nice.
But to when somebody falls short, and we all do, of course, that it would be good if we did say, I love you still, you know, and love them through it, and to say something instead of condemning them, just to say, we all make mistakes, and acknowledge that, because I do, everybody does too. And I hope that you'll find your alignment, or that you'll learn from those as why. And then also, again, as Dr. Ann said, when we say I love you to somebody, it does affect us. And it's like children, they live up to our expectations of them. So instead of being mad at children even, you know, if they fall short, to say I love you and love people through it versus
Right.
the others.
Beautiful. David, Dr. David Carter.
Diane Mundine.
Diane.
But to love is not to allow them to interfere with your space, or is it? That's our question.
To love them is not to allow them to, again, you're not, loving someone doesn't mean that you're a doormat for their, for the pain that they may bring to your life, okay? But you can love someone even though they're in error or they're making mistakes, but you're not asking that error or that mistake to bring harm to your life. Yes?
She says that she's talking about adults and not children.
Not adults, okay? So another adult is making a mistake, they're living in error. You can love them even though they've made their mistakes, and look beyond their faults and love them. Now, if their error is bringing harm to you, You love them, but of course you want to take care of yourself in a healthy way. So it's not like you're called to love them in abusive relationships, should we say. Say there's a husband and wife, and the wife is abusive to the husband, we'll say. Little twist on that. And so, the husband doesn't have to stay in that relationship, but can love and seek the highest and best. Yes.
Okay.
Let's go to David Carter and then over to Dr. Ann.
Okay. So here's my question that I'm going to tackle to Diane's. When it comes to your children, let's say your adult children, they have their own lives, you have your own life, and you know that that's their journey. If you are a student of truth, should your heart not break when you see that their journey is so painful for them? Or does your heart of love, it's okay for it to kind of break, just in the sense that you see your child, you know that's their journey, and their life is, the way you see their life is so destructive for them. You know what I'm saying? It's because it seems to me it's normal that your heart would break for them and grieve for them, even though you realize it's their journey.
Right. Certainly, there's nothing wrong. We're human, and we would have emotional attachments to see anyone struggling, anyone going through things. But it's kind of like, if you were out in the garden and you found this wonderful cocoon of the caterpillar breaking through this cocoon, and you say, oh, out of my heart of love, I love you so much, Mr. Caterpillar. I want to help you. I'm going to break that cocoon open for you and help you through this because I love you. And so we crack open the cocoon, and what happens is the butterfly never evolves. Right. It needs that pressure. It needs that stress. It needs that stretching for its wings to actually be strengthened to fly and soar. So this is, again, where we love someone, and yes, it may hurt us, but we're allowing everyone to be on their own journey, and that they need to break through their own cocoon of life to be able to soar. So if we break the cocoon for them, we're hindering their growth. Yes. Dr. Ann.
Two things. One is, for Diane, I might suggest that Paul Selig's first book, The Word, describes and takes you to the place where you realize and accept that you are a divine being. And once you realize that in yourself, you can look at others and do the same for them. And number two is, when you're praying for the people that you're seeing in a dysfunctional situation, you are also believing that the end is resolving in God's perfect way. You have to release that to God. Not that part was for you.
Right.
Carter.
And we have to understand, everyone is on an eternal journey. We look at this lifetime and we think, I want everything corrected in this lifetime, but not all of the evolution of the soul will be complete in one lifetime. So we're allowing people to go through these journeys, go make their mistakes, learn from them, break out of their own cocoon, strengthen their own butterfly wings to soar on their own. We can be a light for the pathway. We can offer an exemplary living. We can be the witness that the Bible talked about, going into all the world and be that witness, be that example. That's what we're there for one another. But along that, it is to allow everyone to have their own journey. Carla, your comment.
I want to recommend to everybody, or suggest, or encourage, let's say, to reread days 24 through 26. Those were so profound to me about that I've read them 10 times, because I want to get it. And what it says is, like, when we pray, we don't pray for the woman to be without her anger, because then we're still labeling her as an angry woman, and that still contributes to her manifestation as a woman with anger. But if we instead this is the hard part I keep trying to get, I'm open to suggestions, but if we can just love her from that upper room thinking without the labels, then she is divine. We see her as divine, and as God intends, Source intends for her to be, and she intends for herself to be, and then she will be what is intended, and the outcome might be even better than the outcome that we would have ordained by our prayer for let her be without her anger.
That is exactly what prayer treatment is. And prayer treatment has been teaching this for us. This is not something new that Paul Staley is telling us. It's something we've gone over in classes. So what do? We see one another as perfect and whole when we go to prayer. So we don't see the woman as angry and saying, I'm treating her anger. I'm not treating her anger. I am treating for her to, for the perfection of who she is to be realized. That's what it's all about. So if we constantly see the woman as angry, as you brought out so beautifully, then what we're doing is kind of recycling that. Here's an angry woman. This angry woman that anger needs to be healed. We're always echoing over the problem, not speaking the solution. So yes.
Can I just say the challenge I'm having, and maybe you can help me with this, is that I want to see them as perfect and whole, and I feel like that's labeling them still, so I'm trying not to label at all because that's still kind of pushing outcome. I'm trying to just hold them as divine, as source with no expectation. Does that make sense?
But that's exactly what you're saying. If you see them as divine, divine is whole, perfect, and complete. So whole, perfect, and complete, we might call those labels, but that's the goodness and the essence of goodness.
But divine might not be whole, perfect, and complete because God is everyone, right? So God was Judas and God was Pontius Pilate. So I mean, you know what I mean? So
But even
God is Hitler,
but they were all perfect.
But they're all whole, perfect, and complete. The God in them, the essence of every human being is whole, perfect, and complete.
So I guess
we just have to realize that.
So I guess when I'm saying whole, perfect, and complete, I'm thinking the woman without anger, for example.
Right, she's whole, perfect, and complete. She's divine.
Okay. Okay, maybe
I read that over and over again too.
Yes.
Maybe I'm analyzing too much.
Yeah,
the essence, we're seeing the essence. I love this discussion, by the way. We're seeing the essence, not the action. So we're looking at Hitler and we see the divine within Hitler, but we're not focusing on the action. We're looking beyond. We're looking at the soul of Hitler. We're looking at the soul of the angry woman in the illustration. We're looking at the soul of the person, and that's their true essence. We're not looking at the action. Because when we're praying about, this angry woman and her actions, we're talking about the problem. We're not talking about the solution. The solution is, let's see the beautiful divine essence of this woman. Let's call it forth. And so we need to remove our focus on the actions of one another and that be the label. I also want to say that the divine is who you are. So in other words, this is a shirt. That's what it is. But it has a label. And the label says its size and its brand and then the maker and all these kind of things. But if I remove the label, it's a shirt. Okay? So you are a soul and that's not a label. You are divine and that's not the label. But the label could be a divine. You are the divine with anger. That's the label I'm stitching in. So let's remove the anger label and you are just what you are. This is still a shirt without any labels. So, you might say that that's what it is. And what you are is this divine expression. And I see you as that. And that is label-less. How's that? Okay, does that help? Okay, good. I hope that helps. All right, Dr. Ann.
So I don't mean to make this simple, but love is the greatest, strongest healer there is. The Bible says that. Science of Mind says that. And that's a combination, as I see it, of your mind and your heart coming together. And so it's not the words that we say in the prayer. It's not, I'm gonna change this whole situation around by what I say. It's the love. It's the essence, the vibration of love that goes from you to another person or whatever you're praying for. That sums it up for me.
Good. Beautiful. All right, let's continue on. Now, you cannot abide in the kingdom of God, meaning in the presence of God, who is love, and mandate for another what they should be, or other than their right to just simply be who they are. You do not decide who is worthy, and you do not decide who is worthy of love. Love is this incredible power that sees the divine presence with one another. And love, when you offer that gift of unconditional love, what you're doing is attracting and pulling out the divine in someone else. So your recognition of the divine presence will draw out the divine presence even more. So the more you love someone in spite of their faults and their failures, the more the good, the divine, the God within them will rise to the surface. So love is helping to raise them to a higher level of consciousness. This is why it's so ridiculous to think if you're not living a quality life, I cut you off and I stop loving you. No, as we said earlier, that's when you love someone more. You put more into it. You love them deeper. That was in last week's class notes, where we brought that out, where you love someone deeper and deeper and deeper, because that love will then pull out the highest and best in them. All right.
Rajesh.
Okay, yes. Welcome.
Warren from Nepal says hello and quotes John 3:16 and also says thank you for your good heart.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining us. We're glad that you're with us all the way from Nepal. Wonderful. So let's continue on as we begin to talk about this love. What happens is this kind of love that we give is so transformational. As we love others, we're going to be transformed. And that loving energy and vibration that we offer will also impact others and will help them to be transformed. So alchemy that we're talking about in this book is all about spiritual transformation. It's the creative power within us. It is the work of lifting others higher through the ideas of what we have known to the unknown and then to re-knowing. Okay? So we're going to move beyond how we see this person as the angry woman in the illustration. And we're moving on to the unknown, seeing that wonderful essence and re-knowing them in this way, renaming them, picturing everything about them, and seeing them now as good, blessed, and divine, and you can love them. Just know that if you choose not to transform your thinking, you're not denied by God, but you are denying God. So if you're not willing to be transformed to see the divine in everyone and everything, you won't be denied by God. Love will not pull away from you or be removed from you, but you will be denying the love that is God. Does that make sense, everyone there? Okay. Anna.
So I'm thinking the awareness or the consciousness of love can come first by a thought, oh, I'm going to love this person, they're in trouble, or they're having a difficult time. Or it could come through the heart first as a feeling. Well, all we need to do is keep that consciousness alive so that we can combine the two and make that responsible decision to love them, knowing that that's the healing. That's okay?
Wonderful.
Oh, okay.
So it is this work that we do of lifting of the vibratory field, the vibration of one another. It is sort of the cleaning out of the closet where we've hidden things that deny God, and we're removing them. And I love this simple illustration I put in our note packet. Remember we talk about the clay pot?
Yes.
And we have this wonderful class visualization of a nice creamy ice cream cone covered in a chocolate coating, and that coating is hindering us from realizing this wonderful creamy goodness of ice cream inside. We've got this shell, but isn't it wonderful when you tap that shell, you break through that shell, and you find all this wonderful creamy goodness of ice cream? Well, we've got this clay pot coating over us. This is this coating that we've come of the jadedness of the world around us, where we've entertained some thoughts of fear and lack and separation that create a coating over the light of love that radiates from within us. So our work of changing our vibrational level is a work of changing feelings and the energy through this unconditional love that breaks through that chocolate shell, shall we say. And that's going to break through that hard covering. That's going to break through that hardness outside of our life. And when we rise to that level, what happens is we're going to see all things from that new vibrational level. You know, in our world today, we're always asking people like, why can't people see certain things?
Yeah.
Why is it I see good and love and all this kind of stuff. And why do they not see it? Loving people see a loving world. Hostile people see a hostile world. Same world. That's a quote from Wayne Dyer, who simply says, it's, the vibrational level that you're at. And as we raise to a higher vibrational level, what we see is love. We see and we are apt to attract it, and we relate to it because we're at this level of thinking. People who've remained in a lower level of vibrational thinking, they cannot see what you're seeing. But what they see is fear, and they see lack and more separation, and they see negativity because that's the level of their consciousness. So we constantly wonder, I can't understand why this beautiful person can't see, can't understand, doesn't get it. Why not? Because their thinking is at this lower vibrational level, and so they can't comprehend it. It doesn't relate. They're like, what? Only when that person makes a choice to raise their vibrational level will they begin to see things from a different level, a different feeling, a different energy will be there within their life. But it's all those people who they're not willing to see the world from a different perspective. They keep seeing the same old thing. I see more fear. I see more hate. I see more separation. I see more lack. They're constantly saying, do you not see how much, there's not enough in the world? Don't you understand? Why would we share when there's not enough for us in our own nation? Certainly we want America to be first because we don't care about the rest of the world and the rest of the globe. It's all about us and our needs first. It's about survival because we're the ones suffering. And you see, that thinking just cycles over and over again on a low vibrational thinking. Then as we move to a higher vibrational, we see in the Spirit of God, there is plenty, there's abundance. And the more we share, the more it comes back to us. We begin to understand and we comprehend that thinking, and it just seems that's our new normal. We attract that kind of vibrational thought process. We're at this higher level. So in alignment with love, what happens is you suddenly receive the insight, you receive loving insight that's required to be in unity with God. You begin, because it becomes so clear to you, because that's where your thoughts are. Your thoughts are based in love, then you begin to understand love. Because God is love. You understand God. All that was hidden is now being unfolded for you. It's happening with great aha moments because you've raised your vibrational frequency to another level. Do you understand that? Understand this, that God is in all things, in everything you see and feel, but it is denied sometimes by your ignorance. And so if you truly know who you are as divine, you would never deny another love. Ooh, okay. How about that person who just irritates you and drives you crazy and is a control freak and they're self-centered and it's all about them? And you're like, boy, it's a hard one to love that one. But that's where we are denying God. And so what we want to do is put the love into our sight line, our vibrational thinking, that when we think about them, we think loving, and we begin to wish for them their highest and best. Because the reason so many people are what irritates us is because they're wounded and they're not at their own personal highest and best. So when we raise them up into the upper room, when we lift them up and view them with unconditional love, a consciousness of loving and seeing the highest and best, praying for that, treating for that, believing for that in their life, the healing happens with them. You find an evolution in that personality that's been irritating you. Love them. What happens is, in this journey of life, we get to express the divine beyond all limitations, physical limitations. As we rise to a higher consciousness, we get to think about God, expressing God beyond the physical limitations, beyond the form, beyond what we've been taught. We begin to realize that we're not bound by any of these previous thinking pathways of thought or these lower vibrational levels of thinking. We're not bound by them. You now find that you have boundless thinking, boundless loving, is yours. When we talk about unconditional, there's nothing, only conditions you put on are your own. You're the one setting the conditions. Love itself is boundless. But we put the boundaries around it. We confine it. We put the limitations on it. So just know that we can express love in a new and fresh way that is full of boundless expressions, infinite ways that we can acknowledge love. It's just, we begin to think, how are the new ways I can just give out loving energy? How can I be more loving than I've ever been before? So when something is lifted to infinity, the author is using that word to reflect the presence of God. It's made new. So when we think about an experience we went through that was painful, but we now want to see God in that painful experience. We want to see how we learned a lesson through it, how it shaped our soul, how we grew through it. What happens, we can now look at it as being made new. The presence of God is here and now. It's in this moment. And so we're beginning to see things made new. We're seeing things in the presence, that presence of God. Any religion that denies love is a false teaching. Wow. Let's just name this right here and there. Any religion that is telling you in some shape or form to not love someone or to withhold love from someone, it's a false teaching. It's false. Because God is love. And there are no limitations to the love of God. And there's no withholding. So to teach something other or to act in a way that is other than that is simply a false teaching. So imagine like your body is covered in tattoos. As you experience moving to the upper room, what happens is almost like all those tattoos are falling off. Okay? So you're becoming new. Your skin is becoming born again, or new, you might say, in that example that the author is giving us. So our only problem in life is denying love. That's the problem. Because we create problems in relationships when we simply deny love. Even to the person that has wounded us, or hurt us, or irritated us, or done something wrong, or that we don't approve of, when we're denying love, that is the real problem in our life, is the denial of the love. Not the issue they're going through, not their choices, not their beliefs, not their habits, not their ways. That's not the problem. The problem is that we've denied love. Now, when we're generous with love and unconditional with love, and we love people regardless of their faults and their shortcomings, we love them even though they've made mistakes. We love them even though they're doing things that we don't approve of. We love all those things. We still love that person, even of those things. What happens is then we are now moving in solution, not in problem mode. We're moving in solution, for love is that healer that's going to heal that person who's making these choices in error. They're making bad choices because they're living in error. That error meaning not right thinking, not clear thinking. So when you love them, that love is a healing salve that helps to correct and lead them and guide them into a pathway of making better choices in their life. Yes?
Okay, and so when we lift them to the upper room and love them and call forth their goodness that we know exists there, we're also soothing ourselves and lifting ourselves, because all boats rise. So if I lift you,
yes,
in sincerity, I'm also lifting myself.
Right. Because you're releasing all of your judgments and condemnation, which are really hurting you. And I'm like, I'm going to release all that condemnation, and I'm just going to love you for who you are. Yes, Carla, your comment.
That goes so much along with what's happening in the world today, because I see a lot of things leading to division of, who's different. You have a different opinion than I do on so many topics, and it's almost kind of like we're being pushed to not love each other and to deny the love, but to help, like you were talking about the Taliban and other things. It just occurred to me for us, something that we can do is the formula for love to gift them with the right to be, even if it is not what you want. So if they have a different political opinion or Taliban or whatever, any kind of difference from us, if we continue to love them and give them the right to be, even if it's not what we want, then, as to Dr. David Carter's comment, all boats rise with the tide. And so by us holding that vibration, that higher frequency of love, that will expand to others because the boat is rising with the tide. So that frequency is expanding with our holding it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Let's just allow people to be on their individual pathways. And that pathway is going to have some error. We all have made error, all of us. And so we're not saying that we're better or we know better or whatever, we're passing all these judgments when we ourselves have made mistakes. Okay? But you want to say, well, can I impart that wisdom to someone? Yes, you can be the witness, you can be the light, but you don't do it in judgment and you don't do it in condemnation. You always share light in love and loving someone, even though as you may have shined the light and they reject the light, you still love them. You may shine the truth and they reject the truth, you still love them because love is that healing. Yes?
So if you're marching in a death march to a gas chamber and you know you're going to be killed, it's kind of hard to make the choice to love the people that have made the decision to do that. But in the long run, it's your mind versus your soul. Your mind is not your total soul. And so if you were able to reach that where you said, I love them even though they've sentenced me, then you have grown your soul.
Yes. There's so many stories of people, even as Desmond Tutu, who was imprisoned. And yet he said, I will not allow my captors. I will not allow myself to hate my captors. I will love them, even though they've imprisoned me. And when he went out of prison and then came into power as a leader, he didn't go do tit for tat. He continued to love because he said, I will not allow that to control my life or to impact my life because then they are the victor. So as you're walking to the gas chamber in that illustration, it is that release of just saying one divine love. I love that person, even though they may have chosen this pathway for my life, even though they're bringing harm to me, I can still love because I'm not going to let hatred or unforgiveness or anything being a barrier to the evolution of my soul.
That's the story of Christ.
Exactly.
Going to the cross.
There you go.
Forgive them, for they don't know what they do.
Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Beautiful. Carla.
I really like what you just said, Dr. Paul, and I just want to stress that I think that's so appropriate for today, and that we, because of all the stuff happening in the world, that again to have that thinking like Desmond Tutu, and again to give them the right to be, even though it's not what we want, and that's in doing that we can be the change that we want to see in the world, and that's how we can do something about what's happening in the world today.
Right. Yeah. My partner Robert and I would leave home and we'd say, we're going to go to the same destination. Maybe I'll meet you at the church. And we pull out of the driveway. He would go to the right. I'd go to the left. We each chose a different journey, different pathway, but we got to the same place. But it would be this kind of argument. It's like, why do you go to the right? Don't you know that street is this and that? And I go to the left and my way is shorter and it's easier and I'll save gas. And they'll say, well, this is saving time and I can move faster, less traffic. And everybody, we'd argue back and forth in a friendly context, but just kind of laughing about whose pathway was better. And then we realized, choose your own pathway because we're all going to get to the same place in the end. So allowing someone to go on a different pathway is maybe sometimes very difficult for us, but it's releasing control, manipulation. It's releasing judgment. It's releasing everything and saying, that's the path you're on. And I love you, even though you've chosen the wrong one. Even though you've chosen that path. Even though you've chosen that. Yes. Dr. David Carter.
Okay. I hope this question applies. As a student of New Thought, when you see something that does not reflect a world that works for everyone, what are you called to do? What is your responsibility in that, besides lifting it to the upper room? I mean, you can do that mentally, but what, if you take any other action, are you moving beyond what you should do because you need something else outside to help you lift it, and you're misinformed? I mean, just
what is our action in creating a world that works for everyone when we see it's not happening that way?
Right.
First of all, there's zero condemnation. We don't do any good by condemning anything.
Right.
And I think the first thing you find on Facebook, if people want to attack, and they approach everything from what they don't want, rather than what they do want. So I think the witness that we offer in helping to create a world that works for everyone is speaking the highest and best of what we want, not what we don't want. Sometimes what we don't want is there's a lot of blame, there's shame, there's condemnation, there's name calling. This person's an idiot, their political views are all wrong, and I can't stand that person, and we're always speaking from the negative. Let's speak from the positive. And people learn better from the example of positive, and we are more united when we talk about what we're for than what we are against.
Okay. If there's an issue that you don't think people are aware of, do you have a duty to make people aware of it? Let me give you this example. And it's just something I just happened upon. I was reading some information about the Olympics because I follow that closely. And there was this little buried article about the International Olympic Committee banning certain athletes. And it said, but all of the athletes that they banned were black females. I said, oh, wow, let me read this, see what this is. It was a really little article. And I opened up and read it, and there were 5 total athletes banned because they had unusually high levels of testosterone in their system. These were all females. They were born anatomically female. None of them are transgender. And they're all from African countries. And they did not, this was just naturally occurring in their bodies. So by circumstance of their birth and their location, they were banned from any races that were 400 meters to a mile because the IOC said that's taking advantage of other female athletes that don't have these high levels of testosterone. And these women were born this way. They didn't do anything. You know what I'm saying? It's just by circumstance of their birth. And I said, well, does anybody know that? And all of these athletes happen to be from African countries, and they're all black. And these are like 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. And by the same token, the IOC said, if you take hormones for 12 months take extra estrogen for 12 months to reduce your levels of testosterone, then we'll let you participate. But then another scientist said, well, wait up. We have proof that they can take estrogen for 36 months, and they still will have higher levels of natural occurring testosterone in their system. But they are hoping, the IOC said, but hey, you're picking on us, but we did allow transgender athletes to compete. If you were transitioning from female to male, we don't care what event you compete in. You're good to go. Only if you are a female with a naturally occurring high level of testosterone, we're going to ban you from competing. So these young women were just crushed. And I read it and I thought about it. I said, so in other words, I'm transgender. If I decided I wanted to compete in the Olympics at any male event, I am good to go. I said, but how is this a world that works for everyone when these women, and I just happened to see the article, and normally I don't even look at the news on the internet because normally it's just so negative, but it was like, it pulled at me. I said, I can understand, because first I thought, well, wait a minute, African American athletes ought to be outraged. But then I thought, well, wait a minute, I'm not going to be outraged if I'm African American, because if you have that much testosterone in you and you have broken all of these world records, I won't win my race. I won't get gold or silver or bronze if I support you. So it's like, how do you, in love, how do you lift that whole situation and in the process make people aware of it? Because I think a lot of people just are not aware of that this is happening.
So how would we tell the story from a more positive perspective rather than blame, shame, attack, or guilt? So the natural story would be, oh, these idiots, these people are wrong, there's injustice here, there's all this kind of stuff. How would we speak more positively about it, that we speak with from a spirit of love, that we look forward to the Olympic Committee doing X, Y, and Z. We look forward to their understanding. We see wonderful examples when they've been willing to make changes down through time. We applaud these things. So, it's all about our perspective that's not polarizing, that we become a witness and a light. So we become a bright light when we're in the positive vibrational frequency. We become a diminishing light when we're attacking or negative or blaming. Or yes, Carla.
I totally see that too, because I have a conflict with that too. But I think that as long as we try to stay with what we're in alignment with and with harmony with, that's what I keep trying to think about, is what I'm educating about or what I'm talking about or doing or whatever in harmony and in alignment with who I am. And in a situation like that, yes, it seems very unfair. It makes me sad too to think of those poor girls, but we don't know how that plays out into their template that they created for themselves. Because when I think back when I was in my 20s, I had something very horrible happen, and at the time I would think, oh, this is a horrible thing. But now,
path that they chose, maybe not the particulars, but anyway, the path. But everybody's journey, I think, we can learn from it. So that was my take on that. How do I learn from that, and how do I even make people aware that this is even occurring? Because sometimes we don't know. In innocence, we're ignorant, and we don't know about what's going on in the world.
So let's be a witness in positivity and in light and in love, speaking about what we are for, not what we are against. No condemnation, no judgments, but just speaking about what we're for. So, we unite people. When you talk about, hey, I'm for peace, is there anybody in the world that says, no, I'm not for peace? I mean, yeah, peace sounds really good. So what we're for is there, rather than I'm attacking a scenario where there's harm and there's evil and blaming and attacking judgment around war or whatever. So, here's again, our approach is that to always be approaching everything in love. We will, hey, you attract more flies with honey than you do with vinegar, right? Exactly. So there we go. That's our old analogy. So whatever challenge we're going through, we welcome a new understanding, a learning experience, a rebirth happening. I can't tell you how important that is. Everybody wants to be judgmental of or feeling bad about your bad choices you made in life. But you went through these wonderful experiences that are helping you to have a new understanding. Let's just look back and could we say, there are no bad choices. They're just choices. But the choices evolved in something good. So was it a bad choice? Or was it a necessary choice? Whatever we're going through, these are learning experiences to welcome a new understanding of life. So is it a bad thing? Or is it just a learning experience? And let me tell you, probably the only way it would be a bad thing is if you didn't take time to learn from it. That's where the error is. But when we stop to look and learn through everything we're going through as a learning experience, it's aiding to our evolution of the soul. And that's what we're here to do. That's what we came for. It is a rebirth to the understanding of our true self. The whole journey of the Bible is talking about self-realization, realizing who you are as a child of God. One of the most prominent Bible stories is the story of Jesus' baptism, where he has a moment of self-realization. Baptized in the waters, he comes forth from those waters, and the heavens open, and there is a voice from heaven saying, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased." Now, we read that story so literally, but I can't help. I got to stop and say, folks, let's remove the literalism here and look at what that story is telling us. We have the water symbolizing of thought or consciousness. Jesus rising out in a new thought, rising out of that water in the baptism experience. And the heavens open. And what are the heavens? Consciousness. Aha, a moment, a realization, heavens opened, his thinking was broadened. And the dove is this dove of perfect peace and calm. A bird doesn't fall and land on his head. I'm sorry to tell you that. A bird doesn't fly or soar over him, circle over him in a literal context. The dove descending is this symbol of great peace that comes over him. And the voice is not an audible voice of God saying, "This is my beloved son," or "This is my beloved," however you picture God. It could be either way. But it's not a voice from heaven. The heaven is the consciousness of Jesus realizing, self-realization moment. I'm the beloved. I'm the son of God. God loves me. I have washed away all kinds of thought previously in the waters of baptism. And in baptism in ancient time was always in a river where the water is moving. Baptism always moving water, washing away, releasing. When you come out of those releasing waters, I've been baptized in the River Jordan in an Israel trip and had the wonderful experience of just reenacting that sense of being immersed in those waters that are moving, washing away, and welcoming new thought, new consciousness, new awareness in my life. Self-realization. That's what the scriptures are always telling us about. So everything you're going through in life is a baptism of fire, baptism of experience, baptism of a journey, baptism of your pathway, whatever way you like to call it. As you're coming through it, there's a new awakening, a new lesson, a new realization, a self-realization. Through it all, I'm the divine. Through it all, I'm the child of God. Dr. David Carter, you have a comment?
Yes. So self-realization is like self-acceptance. So at the moment that you accept yourself, who you are, even if you're not quite connected to the fact that that's immersed within your spirituality, that is your moment of awakening still, right?
Yes. When you realize fully, completely, that you are this divine, God in you, that's what you truly are. Not this ego, not this physical world, not this body, not this self-centeredness of Paul Gretz. But when I realize I am this divine expression of good, of God, that's innate within me, let me release that out. That's my self-realization. That's my self-acceptance. That's my true rebirth. That's my born-again experience. Okay? So we understand that it is not that we become a new person, but we are now expressing the divine. We're expressing in a new way. We're living life from a new perspective. He talks about in this experience, you will have a gift in consciousness. A gift of wisdom of the Holy Spirit, possibly a gift of knowing, a gift of sight, a gift of love, of speech, a gift of expressing God without question means God with full recognition of who you are. I'm not wondering, I'm not wavering, I just fully get it. You may have received a gift in some way. Where do we find this? Paul Selig's book, Alchemy, is Acts chapter 1 and 2.
Yeah.
That's what it is completely. This is not something new. It's already been written to us 2,000 years ago, but we couldn't read it or see it because we're looking at the literal. We're thinking this is a historic account. When Jesus said, "Tarry in the upper room," hello, what is Paul Selig writing? He's saying, get into the upper room of higher consciousness. And they came. There was a diverse collective that was joining in this upper room. It's not just you, it's you and you and you and me. We're all gathering in a higher consciousness. And it is when we came into one accord, when there was this full sense of unity in this higher consciousness, that I see you as me, and I see the God in you, and the God in me sees this. There's this wonderful connection. When we've come into this one accord, something miraculous happens. They moved out in a holy boldness. There was gift given to them, that they began to speak with the gift of tongues, which is truly the ability to speak clearly. This is a metaphor, an analogy of being able to speak convincingly. that you have this holy boldness within you. A passion rises up within you. An energy rises up within you. An anointing, you may say, is rising up within you. A God awareness is rising up within you. And you begin to speak in a convincing manner in which that people of diverse languages or modes of communication are now understanding and getting it. So this whole experience is of an upper room that Paul Selig's talking about, that these spiritual guides are, that he's channeling, are speaking of. It's ageless truth. Now, Acts chapter 1 and verse 2, we're not new. They're telling something ancient. Paul Selig is not telling something new. He's telling something ancient. It's just been repeated over and over again in different contexts, different shapes and different molds. So you have Alchemy, the book of Acts chapter 1 and Acts 2 in a contemporary form. That's all. Yes, and
cloven tongues seen metaphysically in light of the gift of tongues.
so we find cloven tongues, I put that in your notes, that is that metaphor for a convincing speaker.
Oh,
Okay?
I thought it meant a duality, suggested a duality or a balance of being able to see another person's point of view, and then
I like that too. I mean, that certainly could apply. To be a convincing speaker, you're going to have that perspective as well. And so you're receiving this gift from this higher consciousness, this holy boldness, a boldness that coming. How? Because number one, when you have self-acceptance, when you have self-realization, what do you have? You've got confidence, don't you? Confidence comes to you. People who lack confidence is why? Because they don't know who they are, right? They don't know who they are. They're frightened. They're scared. They haven't accepted themselves. They haven't really known who they are. And who you are is this divine essence. And when you have a self-realization, you go, I know who I am. Confidence rises up. And what is confidence? A holy boldness. So we find this whole story of the birth of the movement of the teachings of Jesus going around the world happening because of this upper room experience of self-realization. So when we re-know something, it's re-seen. Okay, we're going to see something differently. We're going to re-see it. I see it from a different perspective. I see it from a different vantage point. That which was denied the light is now seen in the light. Okay, I see it from a different perspective. I see this person not in their anger, not in their arrogance, not in their controlling manner. I re-see them, and I see them in the light that they are a child of God who may be acting out in this way because of some woundedness or some inability to see who they truly are, their inability to have self-realization. Dr. David Carter, your comment.
And that's how we love the Hitlers of the world. That's how we love anyone that's ever caused us harm.
Exactly. Beautiful. We re-see them. We re-see them. And we see them from the divine. We stop looking at their actions and see them who they are, because their actions are not who they are. Okay? When we get that. So, what happens is we remove any mandate, and they do not have to be what you want them to be. You just re-see them as this child of God. It helps to rename and to re-know. Name something in a new way. Name the experience in a new way. I want to tell you this. As you're learning about understanding God, I think it really helps people to rename God. Because, a lot of people, as they're discovering God within, I've only known as God without. All my childhood is I was praying to God, and God was this man on a throne, white man, of course, with gray hair, maybe even a gray beard. But I saw this picture of God as this man on the throne. He was, based on our literal interpretation of scriptures, people have painted this word picture for us, and that he was moving his right hand. He could move his right hand, but not his left, because Jesus was sitting on the left hand, and he couldn't get. Okay, little joke. Kidding, just kidding. But anyway, yeah. But the scripture says Jesus is sitting on the left hand of the Father. Okay, or the right hand of the Father. I'm sorry, sitting on the right hand of the Father, so he can move his left hand. That's what it is. That's why left-handed people have a special gift, right? Left-handed people, because something's sitting on the right hand. Okay, no. All right. We're just joking. Little humor here. We digress. But we've had this picture, and we think God. So I invite people, how about choose a different name that helps you rename your experience with God? So instead of Father, how about Divine Source? And suddenly you've released all gender attachments and the issues you may have with father issues you may have that some people may have in their lifetime. How about just Divine Source? Or how about, instead of God, how about Universe or Infinite Way or Divine Wisdom? How about choosing a different word? Because what we're describing, a name, is really the character of the divine. So God is what God is, but let's talk about the character and choose the name that describes. For God is a God of many names, and that is many characteristics that are all loving, kind, generous, good, forgiving, compassionate, gracious. We go on and on and on. So it might help us in our re-knowing to rename. And even if you've had a painful experience, as you re-know that painful experience in your life, how about you rename it? Okay? Rename it as something good and blessed. You know, as in junior high, I was bullied quite a bit. And so I didn't want to even go to have lunch in the lunchroom. So during that 1 hour lunch time when everybody else was having lunch, I went to the library. And in those days, they had little cubicles, a little private cubicle I could sit, and I read my Bible. I grew spiritually during that time as a seeker and spent that time in my devotions and prayer. I look back at that experience and I saw, was that bullying or was that spiritual growth? Wow. When we rename it and we revisit the experience, I don't look at it as, oh, that was the terrible 7th grade bullying experience. I look at that was the divine gift that was given to me that enabled me to spend that hour in spiritual growth and development. So I need to rename that from that was bad to that was blessed, that was good. So I see it in a new way and I rename it, the whole experience, and I give a new name to it. I have a re-know it, in other words. So we re-know others by detaching the emotions or the feelings that we may have had about them and seeing their true nature. So how about we re-know some of the experiences we've had with people? For you were born with the purpose of evolution. Do you understand that? The reason you're here is to grow the soul. That's why you're here. That's why you're going through every experience you're going through. It's a growing experience. It's an evolution. You're here for the opportunity. You have the opportunity to grow. What are you doing with this opportunity that's been given you? This life right now, here and now, is a vast, rich opportunity for you to change, for you to grow. But remember, the choice is yours. The choice is yours. So in that process of making a choice for change, for evolving, sometimes our first cry is remembering what we've lost. Oh, I've forgotten that I was a child of God. Oh, dang, I forgot that I was gifted and I was blessed and I am created in the image and likeness of God. And then there's the celebrating of what we now see. I see myself remembered as who I truly am. So here's this wonderful experience we're going through as we make this choice for change and we're evolving spiritually and growing. What happens is we lift to the upper room that higher consciousness, what we encounter not through effort. We lift it up not through effort, not through work, but through alignment or agreement. We're coming into oneness. We lift everything up, not by work and shove and press, and I'm lifting it up into this, I'm going to get you into a higher perspective. But by simply aligning ourselves with the divine which is love. So when I position myself in the center of love, and I do sometimes these visual exercises when I'm alone in meditation, I just feel love like it's a golden globe within me, that this orb of just glowing white love is here in a golden hue, and it's expanding and growing and growing, and it's coming out of me, and it's before you know it, I'm encompassed in it, and that love is growing out further and further and further, and I realize I'm just enveloped in love, in God. And there it's easy in this oneness to lift things into also a higher consciousness or a higher understanding or a higher viewpoint, because we're in this wonderful place of, and it's not work. Like you think, dagnabbit, it's so work to get rid of that anger I have for someone or that hatred I have. They hurt me. They said some horrible things to me. They've done some dirty deeds to my life, and I'll never forgive them. When we're in that love and we see them there, remember, we're at a higher vibration of thinking, and we understand and see other things at a higher vibration of thinking. And when we're in that love, we're able to simply raise other things to love. For when we agree, when we choose, when we align with God, we're in this fluid state of divine flow of good. Good flows in, good flows out. Good flows in, good flows out. It's flowing in, it's flowing through, it's flowing around us, it's flowing for us. When we rest in divine love, just get into this presence of love in your moments of devotion. Just be, feel love, release love. We don't need to ask it in. It's already in, release it out. You know, too much of our spiritual work in our world today is always get something outside and pull it inside your life, you know, but it's already inside. Just release it out and realize you're in this divine flow. All right, Dr. David Carter, comment?
Yeah, my comment, as you were talking about how when you're in meditation and you imagine that golden orb, it reminded me of the oneness blessing that you gave us when we were at the conference.
Right.
Could you not do that here?
Yes, certainly. Yes. The sense of a oneness blessing, of feeling this divine love. I am one with it. I am not separated from the love of God. There is no gap. That love is in me. That love is around me. That love is flowing through me. That love is always for my highest and best. And that love never ends. Never ends. I don't care what mistake you've made. I don't care what error you've made. I don't care what choice you've made. I don't care what life you've lived. That love is never going to end. It's always there for you. And that love is eternal. And that love will be with you in this lifetime, in the next lifetime, in the lifetime after that. It'll always be with you. And you may make mistakes in the next lifetime and the lifetime after that. And the love will always be with you. It will never leave you nor forsake you. All right. Thank you so much for joining us in today's class. And as we wrap up the class, what we'd love to hear is what's your takeaway. Now, if you've been joining us through our live streaming, it's been great to have you with us. We'd love to hear what your takeaway is today. What has spoken to you? What's ministered to you? What's touched your life? Because we'd love to hear from you as we share this time together. And while we're waiting to hear from you, simply type something in the comment section. While we're waiting to hear from you, we're going to go around our room and we're going to hear from our students who are in person here in our class today. Let's begin over here with Dr. David Carter. What's your takeaway from today's class?
On page 2, it talks about alchemy is transformation. And even if you choose not to transform your thinking, you're still loved. There's still love there, and there's grace there, and you will have the opportunity to transform your thinking. Multiple opportunities if you don't choose to do it at the moment you receive it, because maybe there's still a blockage there and you can't fully receive the fact of the wonder and glory of transformation. Because to me, it lifts you to a different space. I look back at my life 10 years ago from today and worrying about going to hell, for instance. Okay, so I stayed in church because that was my get out of hell free card. But understanding that God is pure love and God is not a punisher, and that God never punishes me, I may punish myself. I mean, to me, that's transformed my thinking. That's transformed my life. My life is lighter. It's like my spirit even feels lighter because I have some understandings about things that I did not know. So
Beautiful. I agree. My spirit feels lighter when I have that awakening. Steve, what's your takeaway?
I like this sentence on page 2. Just know that if you choose not to transform your thinking, you are not denied by God, but you deny God.
Yep. Wonderful takeaway. All right, let's go to Elise. What's your takeaway from today's class?
When we make a mistake, learn from it, be grateful for it. Which, I've thought of that before, but it was good to hear it again, because I so often when I make a mistake, I'm like, oh, kicking myself, and it helps to reframe it to be grateful for it, because because you probably learned something.
Yes.
And how can I be better next time?
Right. Beautiful. Excellent. Anne, Dr. Anne, let's go to you.
Well, one thing I have learned to do with love is if a situation comes to me by thought, in other words, it's happening and I'm angry or in a negative place, because I'm so visual, I've learned to take my heart chakra and treat it like a garage door and open it. It's like somebody's inside my chest going, let me out of here, open up, And when I open that up, I can immediately feel warmth. And I can feel it expanding, and that's my process that I've developed through this whole thing. So, and that works for me. So thank you for, all of these exercises. The most important part of these classes is how you're stimulating us to think and come to our own conclusions, our self-realization.
I love that. Thank you. Yes. Carla, what's your takeaway from today's class?
Well, in the chapters that I read for this class, he talks about that we cannot have and can never have that which we demand, but we can have everything that which we will receive. And it caused me to think, when we think from the upper room or upper room consciousness, that all opportunity is available to us and all things are possible. For unlimited love, unlimited forgiveness, understanding, compassion, and even unlimited abundance are available to us from that upper room thinking. So that was my takeaway.
Excellent. Brenda, what's your takeaway from today's class?
It's really not up to us to judge anybody, because to judge anybody, we have to be perfect, and we're not perfect either. And the only one that would judge us would be God, and He doesn't judge. So therefore, we don't judge. And when we get that in our mind, it becomes much easier to deal with the world, because we're not judging. We're knowing that this is a person's choice, and they made this choice before they ever got here with God. And we can just look at it and understand that they might be having a hard time, but they, bless God, are working through something.
Beautiful. All right. Any of our students who are viewing from live streaming or our YouTube channel?
Diane Mundine said great class, but she had to run.
All right.
Great class.
Great. Welcome. Well, glad for each and every one of you who have joined us. It's been a delight. If you enjoyed today's class and you appreciate this experience, it is so appreciated if you could share a gift, some support, a token of expression of gratitude for the Emerson Institute and the work it does. You can go to our website at www.cityoflightatlanta.com, and there you'll find a donate button. You can offer your gift. We appreciate so much your support of the Emerson Institute. Thank you for being with us today, and I look forward to seeing you next Thursday as we continue in the final chapter of Alchemy. It's been a great class, and we want to conclude that session with sort of wrapping up everything and hearing more of what this experience has been for you. So make sure you join us next week, Thursday at 10:30, through our live streaming program here at Emerson Institute at City of Light. I'm Reverend Dr. Paul Gretz, and I want to say God has something great in store for you. Live in the spirit of expectancy. Something is coming your way. God bless you. I'll see you next week.